Many reasons that were part of our freedom struggle itself, right? So I'm just going to just share with you those reasons and how it was different from not audible. I think I'll request some of my youngsters and the school children to come forward. Increase the volume. I'll have about 15 to 18 minutes or so. I'll try to cover as much as possible. It is very uh, basically on the how our freedom struggle was different from rest of the world, elsewhere in the world, the various other independent movements that took place. So it is basically out of our experience when we travel across different parts of the world and study the societies and their independent movements and history and all of that. So let me start with very good morning to you all and greetings. So it all started off and ended. Mughal King Jahangir writes a letter through Thomas Roe in 1617, the king of to King of James I, King of England. The letter is a very flowery letter, very flowery letter. So he writes about, I quote, "When your majesty shall open this letter, let your royal heart be as fresh as sweet garden. Let all people make reverence at your gate." And it continues. It also says, "The letter of love and friendship which you sent and the present token of your good affections towards me, I have received by the hands of by your ambassador, Sir Thomas Roe, son, upon which assurance of your royal love, I have given my general command to all the kingdoms and ports of my dominions to receive all the merchants of the English nation as the subjects of my friend. For confirmation of our love and friendship, I desire your majesty to command your merchants to bring in their ships of all sorts of rarities and rich goods fit for my palace, and the God of heaven give you as increase of honor." So this is the letter he writes. And it concludes with another J, Jawaharlal Nehru, making that historical speech, India's tryst by destiny. I have the audio, but for the paucity of time, I think I'll not play that. So he makes the historical on 15th of August, 1947, makes the historical speech. So I'll try to make it little interactive. I would rather invite all the school children to come forward. Just a month back, arguably the oldest democracy in the world, United States of America, celebrated its, any guesses, 240th independence, and we are at 70. And can somebody, especially to invite children, school children, they are not seen to there. How many, it is a case in point to make how our freedom movement was different. How many women presidents the 240 years old democracy has had so far? Any guesses? Anybody? 30 years back, only Richard Ferraro was one of the women nominees, otherwise zero. So whereas in India we have president, prime ministers, governors, chief ministers, north, south, east, west states are ruled by women CM now. And you have governors, national party presidents, thousands of civil servants, governors, party president, bank chairman, so on and so forth. So that itself is one of the greatest differentiators in 70-year democracy. Traditionally a patriarchal society that could transform into, women playing such a major role. So the beauty of our freedom movement is not so much in getting the freedom on August 15, but in the very process, the means to achieve the freedom was much more important than the freedom itself. Because it was non-violent, and for information, India's freedom struggle has influenced almost like 50 countries post 1950s for their for their freedom movements. It can be Burma, Tibet, South Africa, China, Hong Kong. East Timor civil liberties in the USA and Arab Spring and all of that. So Ramchandra Guha, actually, one of the famous historians says, India as a nation, he says, Republic of India is one of the most ambitiously reckless and recklessly ambitious political experiments in the human history. So you can just look at how the other major freedom movements of the world, just as a comparison. Only when you compare your situation, you'll realize the importance. Otherwise, we take few things for granted. Has the water. So French Revolution actually claimed by all men are born equal, liberty, equality, fraternity. Their narrative was based on this. But the same French brutally ruled North Africa, Vietnam, and some parts of India and United States of America. So for whom was this liberty, equality, fraternity? It's a kind of very limited sense. American freedom, 1776, proclaims, God bless America. Recently, 3 days back, Hollywood star Robert De Niro was saying, looking at Donald Trump, he was saying, God save America. But we said, Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, centuries back, Gandhi's book, Hind Swaraj, that set the tone for non-violent struggle in India, he sent this book to Leo Tolstoy. Tolstoy writes on 10th of April 1910 in his diary, read a book from Gandhi, Hind Swaraj. It is important not only for India, the ideas are important for the whole of the world. You can just see the undercurrents in the Indian freedom struggle. It is almost not just limited to India, not in the very nationalist sense. They were nationalists very much. At the same time, they also have international undertones. So I will not be, Sharanappa, as expected, was talking about Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh and Chandrasekhar. I will not be focusing so much on the great, immense sacrifices made by the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Shahid Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad. While paying immense respect to their courage of conviction, I'll focus on the non-violent struggle. This struggle was a multidimensional one, not very much understood by especially the generation, our generation. It is not just towards the political freedom, but to make India a modern nation with character and best possible constitution and an equitable society, very important. Remember, India is one of the oldest civilizations transforming into a modern state. So, it is not just that on 15th of August we 1947 won the freedom. It is not that. There's about 50 years of ordeal of a constitutional process set forth by the British in the constant negotiations between Indian freedom leaders and the British rulers. Start of the 1891 Government of India Act, mid-term reform, landmark reform towards the constitution and Government of India, and it all concluded 1935 August 2nd, yeah. Government of India Act, that actually summarizes podium, yeah. What constitution we have today. Government of India Act 1935, released on August 2nd, was actually a sum and substance of our current constitution was already there. The next 12 years was all about negotiations. Negotiations and all of that. Indians were first introduced to the elections only in 1920, not in 1952. 1920 in a very limited sense. Only property, and you will see in the subsequent my words, property and only with people with property and some education qualification were allowed to elect in the provincial government. It was a whole process that was important. And Nehru and Patel were actually members of the cabinet mission plan. Nehru as the vice president and Patel holding the home portfolio. So imagine India of 1940s and 50s, just for your information, 1930s, 40s and late 40s. 500 plus princely states. Hyderabad under Nizam, Hyderabad province was as big as France, separating the north of India and south of India. Ruled by maximum 20,000 British men through extraordinary institutional setup. From Afghan border to Burma border. Burma was also part of the India at that time, British India. So at that time, Gandhi reminded Congress, I'm not referring to Congress, the political party, but as an agency that contributed largely Indian freedom struggle. Freedom for India, this is from the oral history, there is no written history. Freedom for India, freedom is for India and not for the Congress party. Hence, if you look at the first cabinet, you had first finance minister as Shashimohan Chetty, you had first law minister Ambedkar, you had first industry minister as Shyamprasad Mukherjee. All three were non-congressmen. And so much so that essentially the entire political, our leaders, they prompted accommodation, cooperation, negotiation and all of that. This was the important aspect of our freedom struggle, right? So, in fact, criticism was essential to democracy. Our leaders realized it. Nehru wrote an unanimous letter in a Calcutta daily on his own government. So, arrival of Gandhi on 9th January 1915 marked a major change. Actually, Gandhi combined spirituality, puritanical spirituality into modern politics, unheard of in the human history. Machiavelli had said, end justifies the means. Whereas here is Gandhi who is saying, means should justify the end. Again, a major departure from other freedom struggles. So it became non-violent, it was more about character building, morals, means should justify the end, selfless service, trusteeship of the public institution. These are all alongside the freedom movement that was going on. Trusteeship of the public institution. What Buddha, Mahavira, Basava said, Gandhi is trying to build a institutional framework and developing a political method in the modern 20th century politics. Freedom at multiple levels. You know, our freedom struggle did not want the political freedom at all. They also talked about decentralization. Gandhi spoke about village republics, Panchayat ministries as a result of Gandhi's vision, cooperative movement, self-reliant, freedom from permanent economics that inspired so many other world leaders. Environmental conservation, nature cure, education, simplicity, so on and so forth. I'll just skip through quickly. Now, our freedom struggle went beyond, as I said, the political struggle. It also spoke about four key things. Equality of caste and religion, gender, ethnicity and language and all of that. Caste and religion, Gandhi said, I want to live for 125 years just to make sure religious harmony prevails. And you know, on caste, Gandhi said, if Britishers are ruling us, exploiting us, and we internally are exploiting downtrodden classes, there is no difference. So India is free, not just when we get freedom from British. India is also free when we stop atrocities on the downtrodden society. One of the fundamental shift, speciality of our Indian freedom struggle. So if you look at it, as elsewhere in the world, revolutions actually create constitutions. Sociologists observe in India it is the other way around. Constitution is built in such a manner that it itself wants to bring about a kind of social revolution through equality, justice, those special provisions. Another differentiator from the rest of the world. So, empowerment of the women is another key. Indian women participated, thanks to Kamala Devi Chattopadhyaya, less known Indian. Ramchandra Goa calls us the 20th century's women, 20th century's great women in India. Many unheard of in the human history, many women participated in the freedom struggle. Inherently patriarchal society, thousands, lakhs of millions of women participating was a great achievement indeed of the Indian freedom struggle. So, as I gave the example of America, so if you look at comparable country where women play a major role, any guesses? A comparable country where women play a major role. Iceland is another country where women play a major role, and in fact, post 2008, they actually took control of the country and they saved. And it is a famous saying in the global financial discussion that if it were layman's sisters, world would have gotten saved from the 2008 global crisis. So, if you look at the voting, just one example I'd like to highlight how India, the constitution was so forward-looking. United States took 140 years to give voting rights to women. It was only in 1920 that women got voting rights. UK in 1928, France in 1944, Italy in 1946, Greece 52, Switzerland, arguably the most modern democracy with recall features, right? Referendum and recall features. They gave women voting rights only in 1972, right? So there are historians who are Indian. So we were to give the electoral franchise, universal adult franchise, on the day one, 1952. Day one we gave. The Constitution aspired to give franchise to all, right? Only with the age of the birth. So that was the great, of course, it all went through a lot of constitutional process, debate and discussion. Churchill had laughed at the very idea. So that's why there is a famous saying, Indian election, because of all this, they said it will fail, but even today, reasonably we conduct the elections thanks to the constitution. There's a famous saying, they say in India, we have general elections, but elsewhere in the country, our adjoining countries or East Asian countries, they elect generals. So managing the linguistic diversity was another very, very important thing. Such a linguistic diverse nation as ours is a very, very important thing. North and South divided by Hyderabad as big as France. Hundreds of, thousands of languages, 100 major languages and all of that. See, our freedoms movement leaders themselves were polyglots. Please understand. They could easily understand the diversity of language. Gandhi himself knew about 5 languages, including French and so many others, a little bit of French and Arabic. Nehru was a journalist himself. Gandhi could sign in 16 languages. Nehru spoke Hindi. He started Kendra Sahitya Academy. He was the first president chairman. And as I entered the Kendra Sahitya Academy, the first meeting, I was told that he said, I'm entering this hall, I'm entering this Kendra Sahitya Academy meeting, not as a prime minister, but as a writer. So they clearly knew that such a diverse country as ours is very important. And they knew the dangers of language. Sri Lanka in 1952, Similis was imposed, and that led to the civil war. And Pakistan imposed Urdu on the erstwhile East Pakistan, that led to the civil war, creation of Bangladesh and all that. So they clearly knew the importance of linguistic equality, right? So with all this, on our country, looking at this, Muhammad Iqbal said, "Sare jahan se acha." Tagore was a Eurocentric person earlier. He was pro-Europe. All his thoughts were, earlier kind of matured by the European thinkers. Tagore finally writes, "Blessed I am that I am born to this land." Nehru famously declared, "Unity in diversity." But our own Kuvempu is not just to restrict Kannada or Karnataka. As a representative of the federal structure, how a universality, a poet who had universality at his center could write some lines, if at all it has to write few. Jai Bharata Jananiya Tanujate, Jai Hai Karnataka Mate, translates into English, victory to the Karnataka, the daughter of Mother India. Friends, I'll conclude by saluting all those great souls who sacrificed their lives for the cause of priceless gift called freedom. And I wish you all the very independence. Thank you very much.
Okay, perhaps ours is the only constitution which says in Article 51 AH, it is the duty of every citizen to develop a scientific temper and humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. I don't know if we follow it in letter and spirit, but that I thought was a very significant thing to say in our constitution. Especially for youngsters, I think this should be a very guiding, statement. That's about my point.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
long-term resident of Planet Practice. But anyway, Manjunath, 196. To add, I think, it was right probably in the paucity of time. Even Raja Ramohan Rai, heard of from there, Raja Ramohan Rai, English education, scientific mentality, followed by Ambedkar, and also Tagore was a highly scientific tempered man, right? So he had all this, were equally important differentiators from rest of the freedom movements elsewhere in the world. Thank you very much. Our conservative leaders now are reduced to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was inspired by Gandhi, by the way. Steve Jobs, Leo Iacocca, Ford, and all of that. So I want our youngsters especially, not that I'm very old, but okay. So I'll play probably 30 seconds of this, and 30 seconds of one music that is played when Gandhi and Tagore meet. The documentary, it's a very beautiful music. So I'll play that, and then I think with the permission of the organizer. Hello?
Wind. ಶಶಿ ಕನೆಕ್ಟ್ ಚಾರ್ಜರ್ ತಂದಿಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿ, ಚಾರ್ಜರ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ.
Tagore in the Vishwabharati. Tagore welcomes him with a shawl, and Gandhi touches his feet. The music that is played in the background in the documentary is very, very touching. One of my, so just about 30 seconds, right?
Thank you, Shashimohan, for that very, very eye-opening talk. We still have a lot to learn about our freedom movement.